spiky bits. Make sure you stay in the trenches. Help keep our channel ad-free by becoming a supporter over on Patreon and also scoring yourself some free miniature swag in the process. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out our site, spikybits.com, for all the hot hobby tutorials, news, rumors on all your favorite hobby topics. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today. What's up, hobby maniacs? Rob Baer here with another exciting 40K flashback. This is the 4th edition main rulebook that came out in the fall of 2004, I believe, and it was kind of groundbreaking for its time. Now, granted, that's 12, 13 years ago, depending on how you do the math, but it was definitely a different time in the hobby, I feel like, and it was very exciting. A lot of people, this was an eagerly anticipated book. What happened was, 3rd edition was great, and it came out in the fall of 2000, I want to say 2000 or 1999. So it was around for about 4 or 5 years, give or take, before this edition came out. And there was a lot of problems that arose with it, and they fixed a lot of things with chapter approved articles. Andy Chambers really did a good job tightening the rule setup. But they released some trial rules along the way, and that's why there was so big of a gap between the two editions compared to like 4th and 5th edition, which was basically straight on 4 years. Is they did some trial assault rules, and which was collectively and affectionately called 3.5. And then in 4th edition came out, they did some trial vehicle rules going into 5th. So fundamentally, a lot of things changed along the way. So they did some changes, and then they released a rule set, and then they did some changes, and then they released a rule set kind of thing. And that's why this one was so eagerly anticipated. This was probably, at its time, at its peak, in 2004, that was nearly the best rule set in the past 20 years of 40K, because it collected a lot of different rules. It was the introduction of universal special rules for the first time, collecting up all those rando rules all over the place and kind of standardizing them and putting them in one place. Now, there was some abuse. They didn't quite kind of go in and kind of think some of the stuff through. Like, there was infiltrating problems, like Gazgul Thraka, and this might have been 5th edition, I might be getting mixed up, but like Gazgul could attach to a unit of commandos and could infiltrate, and come in the back line against enemies, and that was a little whack, I feel like. This was also where the rise of the crazy Falcon, the Invincible Eldar Falcon, it was nigh impenetrable to fire, because the way they did the math wrong, basically. We talked to Phil Kelly about it in Vegas in I want to say 2007. And we're just like, yo, why did you make the Falcons so good? Why did you make Eldar grav tanks? He's like, oh, it's not that hard to kill. I was like, dog, do the math on it. It's like 1 in 81 if you shoot it with a strength 9 weapon or higher, a strength 8 or higher. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah. And I was like doing the math for him. He's like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that's what everybody's upset about, huh? And I'm like, there was a good crowd of us there, and we're just like, yeah, that's what a lot of people are upset about, dog. Fix it. But those guys are great. They take a lot of stuff to heart, and and they did fix it. But Eldar's always been secretly good. But we won't harp on that. We're talking about 4th edition here. Another cool feature of the 4th edition rulebook that a lot of people were I guess I want to say glad to see, was an index. There actually wasn't an index in the 3rd edition rulebook, so finding quick referencing rules was quite a pain in the butt, to be quite honest. This actually was super good for the first time, having an actual index in there. So, and the rulebook itself wasn't that big. I mean, you could carry this around with you. It's and the rules itself are only about up to right here. So if they'd done that split book thing, it was really just the size of a codex, give or take, which for its time was actually pretty cool. Now, there's a lot of different sections in here, and you can kind of see, you got the introduction, it gets into the actual phases, weapons, assault phase, morale, just standard fare stuff that we all know. There's the inclusion of the universal special rules, which were new for its time. And then you get into organizing a battle and basically how to set up. And the missions themselves were actually pretty cool, and maybe we'll hit on some of that. Cleanse was a favorite back then. Basically it was a table quarters type mission. It wasn't exactly kill points. Kill points really wasn't a thing. It was forget exactly what it was, to be quite honest. I don't think kill points was even a thing back then. Recon was actually a really cool mission. Taking hold was a cool mission. So the missions were pretty standard, and then that gave rise to a lot of tournaments. Like Adepticon made a modified cleanse mission, which was also very popular in its day. So there's a lot of cool memories and stuff in here. Now the hobby section was neat. They show you, the showcase of all the Golden Demon miniatures and things like that. Then it gets into special missions, which we didn't see a whole lot of in tournament play, but and I went over some of these in a past video about doing the fortresses and making terrain and doing narrative missions, the battle missions, making the fortifications, then the raid missions, the breakthrough missions. These were alternate missions you could play, like if you want to take a whole afternoon and just kick it out and have fun and play. And then it gets into the kill teams and the campaigns and things, which are also a fan favorite. Adepticon started introducing kill teams and combat patrols, or came around in 5th. So that was a really neat thing to see for its time. And then just the actual hobby, like where they talk about promoting organized play. And let's talk about that for a second, because that was really big. Events. They did events, they did tournaments, they did campaigns. Games days were a thing back then. Gaming clubs, keeping people involved. Look at that excitement. All these people are happy. They're doing stuff. They got a filled arena there, Like, you didn't really see that the next 2 editions after this, and we're starting to see it come back right now and such. But, for back then, this was the excitement of the hobby, 2004, 2005. Now, there's a lot, we could point a lot of fingers at why it went away and things like that, but that's not the purview of this video today, right? And then it gets into existing unit types, templates, because if you didn't want to buy the templates, or you didn't buy a starter set, you could photocopy them. And these actually look way cooler than the acrylics ever did. And then it gets into the index, and then a bunch of the playtesters and credits and things like that, artists and all of that. So this, like I said, was a really great book for its time. Now you could look through, and obviously some of the stuff's dated. We've seen some of this art in the past. Characteristics, profiles. It's got that older kind of like transitionary kind of like I forget they call these like headers and things. Kind of between 3rd and 4th. 5th took a more colorful tone in there in all the books, and obviously a lot more color photography and color layouts as computers became a bigger thing, and it was easier to get stuff printed. And then just going over like different vehicle movements and things, and that was pretty much it. I mean, there's like right here. You get to the back here, right? Oh, let's talk about missions. I want to definitely talk about that. So it gets to here. So it's really only about 70, not even that, honestly. It's like 30 pages of rules. No, I guess it's a little bit more. So it's about 60 pages of rules, which for its time, I wouldn't mind a 60-page rule set these days, because hey, it's like a college course out there trying to sometimes figure out, and don't even get me started about getting into the game itself, Alright, so organizing the battle was pretty much the standard mission, force org. Nobody really paid attention to this, to be quite honest, back in the day, because there was actually comp. And in a tournament, you had to have like 30% troops or 40% troops or something like that. But we never really realized how big this force organization chart was actually going to be, going from 5th to 7th, all the way through. And then there was a thing about how much terrain. And a lot of the, you could do if you had terrain sets, but the good rule of thumb was 25% of the table. Like if you took all the terrain, it should cover, and pushed it together, it should cover 25% of the table. And there was, there was some conflicts and things back then about, hey, there's not enough terrain on the table, because some of the rules, the way they are, some of the codexes, the way they were written, would really have an advantage, heavily, favor one side or the other, basically depending on terrain. So there's a lot of terrain disputes and things, but if you just went by that rule of thumb, which I did in a lot of tournaments I ran, it seemed to work out pretty good. Choosing a mission, there's this thing called strategy rating, to where you would basically roll, and you could kind of see what mission you were going to play just for funsies. Now, in tournaments, they basically told you what mission. And here's Cleanse. It was table quarters. There was scenario special rules, Alpha, Gamma, and Omega, and that was like an escalation kind of thing. And right about this time was when Adepticon kind of came up with a primary, tertiary, and secondary goals, kind of like emulating these, but kind of like kicking it up a notch and kind of putting their own spin on it. And Adepticon's always been a great innovator in things for their events, and it's really cool. It was really nice to work with them this year for our Bringing Hobby Back doubles tournament, which I think a lot of folks definitely had fun with. We had 120 people, and Man, there was just very little rules disputes, very little things like that. Like, everybody just really came out. They brought some good lists, don't get me wrong, but everybody really just came out, had some good themes, and just really wanted to just throw down and, you know, and just have a good day. Secure and Control, Seek and Destroy. Recon was actually one of the favorites back in the day. This was more scoring units entirely in the enemy's deployment zone at the end of the game, but the deployment zones were 15 inches bigger instead of 12 inches. Now think about that these days. If you had a 15-inch deployment zone, there's already first-turn assault armies. Like a 15-inch deployment zone, that extra 3 inches on each side, oof, man, I don't think you could do that these days. But this was a favorite back in the day for a lot of folks. And then Margins of Victory. Basically how you had, you know, minor win, solid win, major win. A lot of tournaments do it differently, but this was the beginning of all of that right there. And then it gets into like, hey, these are the armies, check them out. And then, obviously, they had just, and 4th edition was such a weird time too. It was like this transitionary period for a lot of things, including the actual models themselves, going from pewter to plastic, completely. They basically try to make all the vehicles and everything completely plastic because they're coming off that like Lord of the Rings money boost. So they were really trying to invest it into, you know, all of their technologies and processes and really get that good stuff out there. And by 2005, with the release of Space Marine Codex for 5th edition or for 4th edition, we really saw a lot of new kits come out and new groundbreaking shit on that, you know, on that front there. So it was kind of I want to say the twilight of a lot of pewter armies, like fully pewter armies. You really didn't start seeing that after 2005, you know, so to speak. The sisters kind of started to go away, and they really haven't come back, to be quite honest, since back then. And then it gets into the Horus Heresy. Remember, right around this time, this piece of art was, you know, came out. It's fantastic. Adrian Smith, amazing artist. And that was like the inspiration, and the card games were the inspiration. The Warhammer 40k CCG was the inspiration for the Horus Heresy series of novels, which I believe came out in 2006, March of 2006, and really kicked off the whole like OMG heresy. And of course, Black Library followed, or Black Library put all that stuff out, you know, very quick. And 39, I don't even know, novels later, and then Forgeroll jumped on the bandwagon about 5 years later in 2011 with the actual Horus Heresy, you know, book line saga, so to speak. So then it goes over all the, you know, all the fluff and all the things, because at this time the codexes, they kind of took the fluff out of the codexes, so they put a lot of it in here to try to get people, you know, hooked on it and things like that. Tower only in 2004, Tower only 3 years old. They came out in the fall of 2001. So collecting an army, basically how to go about it, and they give you some ideas on painting and, you know, stuff that we don't see anymore. And here's a lot of the how to build terrain stuff that I showed off in a recent video here. Battle honors, how to model them on your kill teams and things, how to upgrade your units, and then it just gets into a lot of different linked campaign scenarios and things like that, and then the quick references. So that's pretty much it for 4th edition 40k right there. You know, I'm sure there's some stuff I forgot, but for its time, you know, this was a really good rule set. It cleaned up a lot of things, but it also created a lot of problems too, which the community came together with what used to be called the INAT, the Independent Tournament Organizers FAQ kind of thing, and they started really helping the community with that one, but that, of course, got to be quite big as well. And yeah, and they kept that up for a while, but then I think I think it kind of went away with 6th and 7th edition a little bit there. So, you know, John Regal and Yakface from DACA, of course, one of the owners of DACA, and a bunch of other folks, actually. Some of the tournament organizers for Adepticon and some of the other bigger events worked on it tirelessly for you know, lots and lots of time, trying to make everything good for all us tournament goers, and, you know, small town hobbyists and things like that. But it was a great time. You know, I hope you enjoyed my 40k flashback of 4th edition 40k and my meanderings along the road of the long and winding road of Warhammer 40k in the 2000s and late 90s there.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access, with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos,